Happy Friday to those of you who are tuning in. That was some Love and War from the Smooth Jazz All Stars. Don't y'all just love a smooth R&B instrumental? I know I do. Happy Friday, everyone. If you are tuning in from Oakland, happy Friday to you as well. As I like to call it, Friday, because it's always an amazing Friday. Who actually works on Friday? I know I don't. I surely don't. But some of you may. And if that's the case, hopefully you've had your breakfast this morning and you're enjoying your day and that your week has been amazing. Today, super excited about the guest that we're going to be speaking with. He has been a thought leader in the blockchain space for years. But before I introduce our amazing guest and dive deep with him on this podcast, I want to show love to Dinesh, who's tuning in. My homie, Taban Cosmos, co-founder and a good friend of our guest today, actually. And Marine, shout out to Miss Marine. Thank you for tuning in. Serena Wallace, hey, happy Friday. What's up, Serena? And Latasha Ireland. Hey, Latasha, so happy to have you here with us today. You know, Mr. Joe is the founder and the chief executive officer, as well as chairman of Dragonchain. He's worked in the software space for over 20 years now, focusing on security and the scalability of software. In addition, he's been a startup entrepreneur for years now, since the mid 1990s, actually. And his latest movement and venture is called Dragonchain. And if you haven't heard of it yet, you're going to hear about it now. He's one of the leading voices in the blockchain technology space, and he's led and contributed to projects, technologies, and really thought leadership in this space since 2010. So he's a pioneer of the innovation that we're seeing across blockchain and to a degree, the cryptocurrency revolution. If you don't know what that is, you're going to learn a little bit today about what it is. He's worked with companies such as Overstock, Coinbase, Symbiont. I think I pronounced that right. He's probably going to let me know if I didn't. And as I think everyone knows this company, the Walt Disney Company, which is one of the biggest media companies in the world. With that said, super excited to have Joe on today because we're going to dive deep a little bit about blockchain, the movement that Dragonchain has been leading in this space for a few years now, and also where he sees the industry going and how a lot of what's happening in social media around tokenization, security, and people wanting more access to the control of their data. How does that apply to the future of work and fundamentally how we're going to interact with technology in the future? So super excited about today's episode because we're talking to one of the brilliant minds in the space. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to throw them our way. It's going to be an engaging conversation. And, if you got the kids watching or they're tuning in, let them ask some questions as well. All right. With that said, Joe, welcome to the show, man.
So kind, Tim. Those very kind words. Thank you.
It's an honor to have you on the show, man. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. It's a Friday, right? It's a decent day. I do work on Friday, but it's just the last day of the last work day before the weekend work. So
yeah. Hopefully you don't work too hard on a Friday, Joe. You shouldn't be working too hard on a Friday.
It's just a different kind of work, I guess, right?
Yeah. Joe, would love for you to share a little bit about, kind of your background, right? Before becoming the chairman and CEO of one of the top blockchain companies and just tech companies in the world right now. How did you even get here? Were you always passionate about the work you do in technology?
Yes, and it's something that I think a lot of people at first thought was boring. I was just excited about software by itself. Just it's so amazing because you can create anything, right? And you think about it. Before the internet even. I mean, I loved writing stuff in software, even, for little devices and things like that. And it just kind of blew up where I realized, oh my gosh, we can do this and this and this and this. And I was living in the Midwest, and it was at first I couldn't even find work doing anything in software. Everyone was telling me, oh, don't go into software. There are no jobs there, literally. And that was in the late '80s, early '90s, and I ended up opening a print shop. I was in a band. We did some pretty interesting, cool things. But I was always trying to, I was using what I knew about software and computers to do things that no one had done even then. And gradually I was able to find productive work and actually do some interesting things. And I just got so deep into what you could do and how to make it easier, and how to basically how it works and why it works, and I ended up becoming a software architect, which is basically trying to fit the pieces together in the most efficient, secure, or scalable way, right? In a way that a company or a startup or whoever is needing the software to do what it does, it becomes an afterthought. They don't have to think about the software. It just does what they need, right? And I loved doing that, and over time, it's been over 25 years, so it's quite a bit of time put into it. But some things now are really easy for me. In that world, but at the same time, I don't get to code anymore, right? I don't get to actually write the software, so that's the thing I miss, I guess, right? But yeah.
But you get to lead those who do code, and Devon told me that he's seen you sometimes you get deep in the weeds when you're really excited, and
oh yeah, well that's where it is. There are a lot of people that do what I do, but that aren't coders, and I think they end up missing a lot, because to actually create, to actually build a system, to be an architect, you in my opinion need to know how to build the individual pieces, right? There's some really interesting philosophy around it, but that's what it's all about. The fact that, okay, I could solve this problem at least a dozen ways, right? Because in the real world, if you have one solution, one path to victory, you'll never make it, because something is going to get in your way. You're going to end up with hurdles. You're going to end up with some walls there, and that was always my thing. And that's why whenever I got as a senior software person, I ended up really seeking out the most challenging problems. What's out there that I could really try to attack and solve something that's unsolvable. And that's what led me into blockchain. So
yeah. So you've been in this space for quite some time. I mean, almost back to the early 2000s. And people are still learning what blockchain and even what the crypto world is about. How was it for you in the early days of this space, kind of convincing people that this was going to be game-breaking technology? And also, can you share a little bit about how you define blockchain and crypto for those who are listening and aren't really familiar?
Yeah. It was hard. I mean, people thought a lot of us were crazy, but I would even tell my neighbors, I'd talk to them and say, hey, you really should pay attention to this. You should buy some, right? It's $2, it's $4, and they kind of listen to me, and then they come when it hits the news, and they're like, Joe, why didn't you tell us? And I that I told you. And it wasn't even about speculation for me. It was, in fact, I was stupid. I bought some at $2, but I did not buy anything near what I should have, right? I was buying them, Bitcoin in particular. I was buying them mostly to learn, to figure out, okay, what can we do with these? How can we build stuff? How can we use these? And I had my whole team, we were all doing anything we could with them. We would have to mine them. We would have to buy them. We'd play poker with them, just to get a handle on how it actually works, because it is quite it's very much software. Everything that's in there is something that all of us in the software world had already done, but it was an entirely different pattern of putting the software together. And so over time, it took quite a while. Over time, it was something that I had to pick out how to communicate with people, in particular with business people, of what can be done with this technology, because everybody sees the Bitcoin and the fact that I can buy some, and it's a speculative investment potentially, and there is some aspect of currency payments and other financial technology involved. But we really, my team and I really drilled deep into it, and in particular when I was at Disney, that's when I really was able to experiment with how do we communicate this, how do we describe this to people in a way that they can realize how they can use it. So different business units, different divisions of the company, and what I came to was the fact that it's really all about time,
Wow.
because you're talking about, and we won't get into the depths of the tech, but you're talking about using a particular technology that allows you to apply energy to solving a little puzzle, a little software riddle, right? Which is relatively simple, and yet it allows you to make it extremely hard for machines to do this. So what you have then is you have a block, and inside of that block, you have a start time and an end time. And inside of that block, you have a whole bunch of transactions or data, right? And what we're doing is, with this energy applied, we are making it extremely difficult to go back in time and change data, right? So in a normal software system, I could just change a database entry, but with this, although it is possible, it would be radically expensive, and potentially it's when I say it's possible, it's not necessarily possible to anyone on Earth. If you had alien tech or infinite power, you could do it, of course. But it's one of these things where it's something that you can. And what we've done is applied how I want to say, we extrapolate from that energy applied a dollar value, so that we can tell you, if you put a transaction up, like say on Dragonchain today, if you go to eternal.report and you go post a tweet, it'll save the tweet. So even if the person deletes it, it's there, right? So if it's a politician or it's a celebrity and they put out something embarrassing, go save it, right? Because it'll be newsworthy. And the great thing is that in that report, over time, it applies about $8 million a day, about $250 million a month, and about $3 billion a year, approximately, of energy to every single transaction. So it's a measure that even a very large company or nation couldn't actually change that data. And so that's what blockchain is all about. And Dragonchain, our whole goal is to make it possible for people to use it, for companies to adopt it, by solving the privacy issue, solving the scalability issue. So
Yeah. What? So how was it for you in the early days? Going back to my earlier question, convincing people of this. Because you're incredibly articulate about it. But what was some of the pessimism that you were up against when you're pitching the company and even your founder journey?
Gosh, well, for Dragonchain, it was, when you think about it, we actually started inside of Disney. So it was originally the Disney private blockchain platform, and it was very much an angle that we took the angle that it was it was research for one, but it was also, let's see what we can do. Let's provide a platform that's actually usable and scalable, so that any system inside the company could use it when they needed basically what we now call decentralized proof, right? Where I need to prove that someone accepted terms. I need to prove that someone gave me the proper identity, because a regulator might come in and ask me. Or I need to verify their identity before I let them make this purchase, right? That type of thing. And it turned out that we ended up making 2 courses, one of which was very business focused, and one of which was very technical focused. And we did that on purpose, but everything was focused not on use cases. Say, oh, you can use it for payments, or you can use it for this or that. It was all about the core capabilities, and as atomic, as small as we could define them, so that these other businesses, and they're other software developers, they're business people, directors of business units, could come to us, and this is the crazy thing, they would always come to us and say, this might be crazy, but I think I could do this, right? And every single time they said that, it was spot on. They were like, yes, that's exactly what you should be doing with it. And it was brilliant because it was usually an idea or a problem that they wanted to solve that they would have never considered could be solved with this technology. So it was all about going for the core meanings instead of some predefined use cases. And that ended up leading a lot, but our biggest difficulties were with the outside world and the regular press that has, especially back then, around between 2014 and 2016 at Disney, that the press around Bitcoin was hit or miss. Sometimes it was very negative, sometimes it was positive, and it scared a lot of people. There was a lot of
scam.
Misinformation. Yep. Yeah, and we had to basically describe, okay, well, that's a different thing than what we're talking about. I mean, that is, there are Bitcoin has never been hacked, ever. The issue, though, is that the people using Bitcoin, including people in powerful places like at exchanges or larger companies, have sometimes integrated with mistakes. That it's software that happens, and in this, the interesting thing is that, and you could look at this a couple different ways. I mentioned time as being the core feature, the proof that something happened at a particular time, which, you think about a picture. If you have a picture that you want later to prove that I really took that at this time, that's an important use case. But there are also ones on incentives, and that is because you are tapping into real value, and you're basically creating provable scarcity, right? I mean, even if you have gold, that it's extremely scarce on Earth, right? We don't know. Someone could bring, if you know anything about history of the Spanish in the New World and bringing the galleons back to Europe, that gold prices crashed because they had never had such a huge flood of gold into the market. And the interesting thing about Bitcoin is that any one of us can independently know nearly the precise amount that would be produced every month, right, or at least every year, which is radical, and it's because it's software, right? So it's basically what you're doing is with blockchain and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, you are basically creating value with software. It's basically encapsulated value. And the other angle of it, the other bit, because you can prove that something happened at a particular time, and because you can actually prove a decentralized piece of data, that is, you have a copy of the data, I have a copy of the data. How do we know that we both have the right copy of the data? That we can both prove it to anybody who asks, right? That I can prove to you, even if I've been disconnected from the network, I can prove this really is the right data. And in Bitcoin, the data means that it's a coin, so it's worth something. But on other systems, it can mean that this contract was in this state when we all signed it, right? Or that this picture really does show me at that location at that time. And what that means is that in essence, it's encapsulated liberty, right? Which is the way, that's probably the key driving component that really made it so different than everything else that was before it, because all of a sudden, it was very clear even to, to Satoshi, that these things have a very definite effect on liberty. I mean, money itself is part of that, right? That's why that's the first use case, and the most obvious and powerful one, because money's powerful. But
and then other use cases is being able to validate supply chain. Where did things come from? Where did they go through? Were they received by the right person? And then even beyond that, after someone receives it, how do we dispose of it? Which is something that we were Taban and I were actually having a conversation with one of our guide advisors the other day. That's another great use case to authenticate, supply chain movement and verification. And that's because people want more transparency and visibility into the things that they use, how they're being moved, and fundamentally where they're going. And it's so powerful that you really break it down in such a simple way. You need to write a book, Joe. I think because you're one of the few people who can really explain it in a very, 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 very simple way. With that said, I want to ask you, because one of the things I'm always really interested about is the convergence of different technologies. And right now, I think we're living the convergence era of multiple technologies. So AI, blockchain, and others. Where do you see, or what are some of the use cases or areas you see blockchain converging with the other technologies, and what excites you about that future?
I see it very much as an enabler. It is a central feature potentially, because you can have multiple AI systems, yet even if you go back to the 90s, you have multiple systems that compete, and it's a good thing. Whether they're websites, whether they are some particular utility in the business world, and yet they had no central way to integrate. And if there was an integration, it would come with a standards board, and it would be a very slow process, and it would have no connected value. Right, you would have value on the outside, so I'm gonna pay for this. So this one over here is open source. How does it monetize? There are a whole bunch of problems like that in the software and business world. And what blockchain can do, and I do think it will do quite a bit of, is providing a value system with competition for all of these entities. And even if it is a better way to simplify standards. And it's odd, because a lot of the people, a lot of the companies we compete with will go straight towards the old world system, even in the blockchain era, that they will say, we want all the companies in industry X, whatever that is, to come together. They're competitors. So they have these opposing drives that, I'm okay, I'll join up because I can't be left behind. But they're all going to play games, and this is what all standards bodies do. You look at any standards body, it's nothing but gaming by all of the big industry giants, that they basically, okay, we'll offer this, we'll all agree to this standard, but we're going to basically throw something in there, either a poison pill or leave something out that only we will have, right? And so it never really, in my opinion, works too well. There have been, of course, successes, but it's very, very expensive. And you think about it, how does a startup compete with that? And and what we need in the world is more startups. We need more individuals building things that will become big, and it's really hard. It's a very rare thing for some of these smaller entities to actually make it, because it's so difficult. And our take on it is that you don't need a standard. I mean, you can, obviously, but that if you have a differentiator, if you have some feature that beats the big guys, you basically throw it on a blockchain, monetize it, put some value behind it, put some proof behind it, and whether it's, in some cases decentralization is important. In some cases, only decentralization of the proof is important. In some cases, It is the transparency that's important. I need to be able to expose this to my customers and my vendors and my employees, right? That you can do all of that without a standard, and it's a beautiful thing because some of the systems that we've seen built roll out so fast that, I mean, it would blow your mind. It blows my mind seeing it, because I know in the software world, even the traditional software world, things take a long time to build, right? I mean,
Yep.
it takes quite a bit to get the process itself to work, then to get the user interface to work, then to debug everything, because you're going to find, oh, we didn't think about that. We have to,
Yeah.
there's tons of that. And with blockchain, you get a lot of things rolled in where, provided you're on the right platform, you get, that you get proof whether you need it or not. And that's some of what we kind of push, that with a lot of our like, say, regulation tech, reg tech, where let's say you're doing something that if you don't do it right, you're going to get a huge fine or you're going to get a lawsuit, right? So you want to follow this stuff, and if you codify it into software, into what are smart contracts on a blockchain, it's a very interesting thing, because we tend to try to get the implementers of these systems to record very mundane data, because if you're looking at something, you might say, okay, here's the truth, but the problem is you could fake that. You could just always say, yeah, this is green check mark. I'm just going to put a transaction mark that I got a green check mark, and when I show somebody, see, I got a green check mark. But if it's an arbitrary thing and there's no backing, it doesn't really give you proof. And so what we like to see is, and this is a little bit, sorry if this is a little boring, but if we like to see a lot of mundane data, things that people at the time don't think that these things are important. But when you roll forward 3 months or a year, and you realize, oh, that thing that was created is now worth a significant amount of money, or we're getting sued over something that happened a year ago, that not only can you pull the data, but you can pull the data in a way that even your opponent, whoever is suing you, has to trust it. I mean, there's no way that I could lie to you. Here is the actual data. Here's the state of the system when your client did this, and we can show what we did, and we can show that it was evaluated properly. So, and that applies to privacy issues. It applies to terms and conditions, anything else that you might have. And in some places, in Europe, you have GDPR for privacy. Yep. In California, you have CCPA. There are rules. You have to follow these rules when you're holding people's data. So it's interesting.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned that you're really interested in is tokenization in relation to kind of the conversation around social media right now, and
Yes.
Who owns the data? Do users do, or do entities? We'd love to have you share a little bit more of your thoughts on that. But before we dive deep on that, want to show love to Carrie, who's saying hi, happy Friday. Happy Friday to you as well, Carrie. Jesse, who's showing me some love. Tim, these sessions are so invaluable for so many people. Thank you for having the courage to share what you know, share your network and your powerful energy. Thanks so much, Jesse. I need you as like an alarm, a positive energy every morning when I wake up and do these. Appreciate you so much, Jesse. Thank you for always tuning in and supporting the work that we do. Shout out to Mr. Andrej. I think I would butcher your last name, but I'll say Miljevic. Great session. Blockchain rocks. Thank you. Blockchain indeed rocks. And we're talking to one of the rock stars in this space right now. So with that said, Joe, we'd love for you to, once again, what are your thoughts on, currently the conversation around social media, who wants the data, where tokenization can help? And also would love for you to even further that conversation with how do you see the work that you do being applied in the future of work conversation?
Right.
And now that we're in the midst of a decentralized workforce.
Yes. Okay. So on social media, most of us have experience or have seen some of the bad things that have happened, and sometimes it's from people, from users, sometimes it's from the companies. And the fact that they are centralized giants, and they have, various political leanings, and they apply AI on top of that, and it gets pretty obnoxious. And people don't own their data. I mean, you look at the Facebook terms of service. They own everything you put in there. It's crazy. And if you look at their history, where they came from, it's mind blowing that people use it. So
Yeah.
we saw, and particularly because if you followed anything in crypto, you realize that it's extreme. At least right now, it's extremely tribal. That the various projects really love their projects, which is a beautiful thing. But the problem is that they sometimes hate the other projects, or they will go and attack the other projects and play games and do things that aren't, in my opinion, helpful, right? We stay away from that because philosophically, we're all about interop. We're all about, that other project. We might have a customer next month that needs that, right? So we want to be able to integrate with them and leverage the good that they've built, right? And that's the important part. But we would see in Telegram, in Twitter, Facebook, that we'd have really interesting trolls come in, and they would attack us, and we'd always we'll try to answer them, but then we realize, oh, it's this coordinated thing. It's really weird. So at one point I mentioned, I think we need a crypto aware forum, somewhere where we can do this. And so that kind of kicked off, and we pulled in some old tech that we had, and we put it all on chain, and we started experimenting, and we started modeling stuff. And it's interesting because, and we're about to launch DIN. I mean, it's out there, it's in beta, but in this coming month, all the tokens will be rolled out. All of the value, and the point is, you think about it, there are lots of ways to do this, and there are lots of competitors, and some of them have some really great features, and we watch that. But we're trying to basically do a number of things with one end goal, right? And so the number of things, we want to incentivize someone to create good content. So for you to come in and write, whether it's a reply that just happens to be extremely funny, or whether it's a post that gives new information to the world, we want that to be rewarded. Okay. Now, some of the issues with how do you decide which ones are the best, right? We didn't want it to be AI. That ends up being tuned by its creator. We wanted it to be a marketplace, and so we broke the system up into layers, which are, if you're ever on Reddit. I feel sorry for you, but if you're ever on Reddit, everything is broken into subreddits. So it's individual communities with their own cultures, right? And some of them are big, some of them are tiny. And we took that model and we said inside of each of those communities, the community itself is the marketplace that decides, okay, for our community and our culture, this post is remarkable and this one is horrible. Right? And we saw that even some of the things that people do in some of the bigger Reddit communities, we modeled into the tokens, where we actually reward the community members for predicting which content is good and bad. Right? And so basically, if you are the earliest person to say, this is a rock star post, it's going to go huge, and you basically predict with a large amount of energy on that post, you will get a large amount of mind matter at the end of the day. And so you're rewarding both the content creator as evaluated by the content evaluators, which we're also rewarding. And then the layers themselves are tokenized. So if you have a particular hobby that you love, or some interest that, even if it's with a brand, or a celebrity, that you can actually own a piece of that layer, and that piece of that layer also mines matter. So I'm going to get a proportion based upon all the activity. So it becomes a very interesting marketplace of content. And the end goal, the single goal that we're going for, is to basically have the best content soonest. Right? That's the whole point of it. So that a normal user who doesn't care about any of the sausage making of all these marketplaces, I don't care about voting, I don't care about writing, I just want the best content about this subject, right? And that's what the end goal is. And we have a lot of interesting little features to basically flip the ads model on its head. That we don't think that ads are necessary or even, obviously they're not wanted.
Yeah.
That if you can instead reward the participants in this economy instead of this, because you think about it, an ad system is just siphoning off. You're still putting up the content that hopefully draws the eyeballs that will hopefully click on the ad. And we're basically drawing that whole piece out and saying, no, you just want the eyeballs and you want the evaluation, and that's what gets you paid. You don't need to siphon off. It's a very inefficient way to draw value from your content on your site. So it's a very philosophical approach, but
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And it's a scalable approach too.
Yes. Yeah.
It's completely scalable.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Joe, for joining us and really diving deep with us. What would be your number one takeaway for some of our audience members and people who are tuning in for if they really want to start getting deep into this space?
Wow. Read, ask a lot of questions, seek out groups. I know we had I don't know right now.
Join the Dragonchain gang.
Yes, yeah. Go to follow us on Twitter for Dragonchain Gang. Follow me, Jojo Rowe. There's some humor, but a lot of philosophical stuff, particularly about blockchain. And ask questions. We used to have a blockchain meetup that was what would you say? It was non-denominational blockchain meetup, basically, right? And it was something where anybody could come in. If they were interested in mining or interested in investing or interested in building a business or they were a developer, they could come in and they could ask questions. And then over time they end up answering questions. And it was for a time, I think we have 3,000 something members there now, and but it's local, and we're thinking about making it, doing live streams or something, but we're trying to figure that out. But that was really. If you can find that, and it's probably hard to find, especially now with all the lockdowns, but because you could, that's what you need. You need to be able to ask questions that make sense to you, right? Because if you go out there in the tech press, you're going to see a lot of bad info, in my opinion, and disinfo, purposely bad info sometimes. That will. What we've seen is a lot of times it closes down the discussion. It basically makes it so that. People don't understand what is possible, right?
Yeah.
That a lot more.
Minded.
Yeah, and it's because it's hard. A lot of the stuff's hard, and a lot of the platforms were created by people who are crypto people, so they aren't necessarily someone who knows how to build scalable systems or anything like that. But that's one of our biggest goals is to try to communicate what is possible, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, come to visit. We have Telegram groups too. We have come to Den. You can ask any question you want in any of these forums, and someone will answer you. Usually I'll be in the mix. So
if you're listening to that guy community and you're in tune with what Joe is saying, definitely join their movement. There's more than enough community around, online or even offline, for you to be a part of. Joe, thanks so much for being on the show, man. It's super inspiring, the work that you're doing, and thank you for continuing to lead the movement. By the way, when are you going to drop the book? Because I think you need to have about your life in general.
Gosh, maybe when I'm old, white-haired, and retired, right? Because I don't know that I would ever have time to do anything like that now. If I get a ghostwriter, maybe.
Hey, find that. It's never too soon or too late to write that book, Joe.
Very good, very good. Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you, Joe. Hopefully we can have you maybe sometime next year when you all release new features or whatever it is. Please, we'd love to have you back on the show, man.
Anytime.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you, man. Have a good rest of the day. And that was the amazing Joe, CEO and chairman of Dragonchain. Check him out on LinkedIn. It's Joe Roets. I think I'm spelling that right. Joe Roets or Roets. But you can spell it Joeroets. Wasn't that awesome? It's just as awesome as Big Black Tea, our loose leaf Harmony Green Tea. Man, it's been amazing, the reaction and the amazing movement that we're just building around the tea in itself on top of our guide community. So if you haven't gotten Big Black Tea, check it out. BigBlackTea.com. BigBlackTea.com. We are getting ready to ship a few of the tea bags that have been pre-ordered. So we're super excited about that. And we really want you to, get some tea. Get a cup of tea in your life. It's already election cycle. I know you're probably already stressed out. And there's nothing like a warm cup of tea to really heal the soul, meditate you, and more importantly, give you a chance to just reflect on what's going on in your life and where you're trying to go in this all election hype. With that said, if you haven't checked out guideapp.co, check out guideapp.co if you want to be a part of the early beta for our movement. Check out guideapp.co. And more importantly, sign up. Be an early access. Be an early adopter. Be part of the early movement because we're just getting started. Every day is day one here at Guide. And then more importantly, if you're interested in being on a future episode of Unleashing the Future of Work.com, please /Guide Live B2B Jam Session. Please check out UTFOW.com. I'll say that again, UTFOW.com. UTFOW.com. If you want to be on a future episode of Guide Live B2B Jam Session. I mean, we've had all-stars such as Arlen Hamilton, Joe on. I mean, I'm on every day as the host. It's a huge movement. We would be super grateful to have you on. As always, our platform is your platform. And to a degree, towards the end of November, we're going to be taking a little bit of a break, November, December, because it's winding down to the holidays. But season 2, or probably I think we're on season 3 now. I actually have to go check our backlog. But the next season is coming early January. This has been amazing. 2020, we went deep. COVID-19 allowed us to really, really scale out the backlog of guests that we've had on the show. And we're super excited to really start doing this again, even with more consistency next year. So definitely make sure you continue to stay tuned in to our podcast, to the live streams, and follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn, always showing love to our amazing guests. And we'll try to see how we can spice some things up for the next season. If you have any ideas, reach out to me. Definitely. And don't forget, BigBlackTea.com. BigBlackTea.com. Harmony is pretty good. I'm actually drinking some right now. All right, y'all. I'm going to cap you all off to a slow jam. Literally a slow jam. It's called Twisted by Smooth Jazz All Stars. Check it out.